He has wild horses that he is breaking and trying to train so he can sell them. The story goes that the horses break out of the fence one day and they run away. And his wife comes up and she's like, "Oh my God, this is terrible. The horses got away. We have no more horses." He goes, "We'll see." Well, the next day, his 2 horses come back and 3 more horses are with them. So the wife is like, "Oh my God, this is awesome. We got 3 free horses. You can now train more and we can sell them." He goes, "We'll see." Well, the story just keeps going on, and the son starts helping the dad break the horses. And then the son gets bucked off and breaks his leg. And the wife is like, "This is terrible." Dad says, "We'll see." The moral of the story is it doesn't matter what happens in life. It can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing, but you won't know the outcome until later on.
This is the Elevation Room, a space where we unpack life's hardest moments and the impact that they have on our faith, family, and fulfillment. I'm your host, Dustin, and each episode we share real stories of resilience and breakthrough to inspire you to keep moving forward, rooted in your purpose, living on purpose, and walking with purpose. This journey we call life is not meant to be done alone. So click subscribe or the follow button now, settle in, and join us as we go into the Elevation Room. Today, I had the privilege of sitting and having a conversation with Tommy Dauphin, and it was a blast. We had a good time, so I can't wait for you to hear from this guy that is full of fun, full of laughter, is a family man, and known to all around him as a connector. But he's also been through some extremely difficult moments in his life, and I can't wait for you to hear the lessons that he's pulled from those and how he applies those to his life today to create memories that will outlast him forever. I know you're going to have a good time with this. I hope you laugh as much as we did during this conversation. And with that, our conversation with Tommy Dauphin. Well, welcome back to the Elevation Room. Today, I have with me Mr. Tommy. How are you, sir?
Doing fantastic, man. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a fun time, I think.
It is. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate you agreeing to sit down. Obviously, we met each other in work circles, as I like to call it, W-2 circles. And you are known throughout everyone that knows you, as far as I'm concerned, as a connector and a very friendly, very jovial, full of joy. But I'd like for you to just share real quick with our audience who you are and your kind of family bio.
I'm glad my $20 a month Venmo that I pay to people to say nice things about me is paying off.
It's working. It's working.
So, man. So Tommy Dauphin, born and raised here in South Louisiana. Little fun fact number 1, lived on the same street my entire life. I have never had an address that didn't have Wyman Road in it.
Really?
Yeah, man.
And you have to unpack that a little bit. You have to.
Absolutely. So only child, and which that insert that means spoiled meme there. But my parents had me, I like to say it at an elevated age. So I think once they had me, they were like, you know what, we're good. Dad was a typewriter repairman for IBM.
Typewriter repairman. I've not ever heard of that job title before.
Well, in 95, he got laid off. Not sure why he didn't see that one coming, but then he worked for the school board for another 15 or so years.
Okay.
My mom was a school teacher for 36 years. And it's growing up with them, lived with them till I was 20. And then unfortunately, both grandparents on my mom's side passed. And they, fortunately for us, had some land and a house down the street. Mm-hmm. So my mom inherited that house. I moved into we called it the rent house. Little fun fact number 2, that's the house my parents lived in when they got married.
Wow.
So this house was built in the 50s. It was my grandparents' first house. Then they built a second house, then, so forth and so on. So lived there. When my wife and I ended up getting married, she moved in with me. And then 5 or 6 years later, we built a house right next door to my parents. So we live on 15 acres, and we're right next door. We even poured a little concrete walkway to Papa and Cece's house, if you will, for the kids. But got a pond in the back, woodworking shop. So it's set up, man. I love it.
No cows, horses, goats, rabbits.
2 dogs. That's it. That land was cattle land when I was growing up. But, since since my grandparents have passed, we don't have any of those types of animals. But
so I hadn't caught the homestead fever or anything.
Man,
huh?
no. It's enough keeping up with my 2 kids and my wife and myself. I don't need to bring any farm animals into the mix yet.
I understand that. I understand. So how long have you and your wife been married now?
We just celebrated 18 years 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
So thank you very
That's
much,
a big
man.
milestone.
Yeah, we have crossed the threshold of being in each other's lives more than half our life. And I remember in Cole's episode that he mentioned something similar to that. So we actually got married on my 23rd birthday.
Okay.
And 2 days later, she turned 23. And so, since then, man, so I just turned 41. So did she, and been rocking and rolling ever since.
That's amazing. 2 kids. How old are they?
2 kids. Adeline is 14.
Okay.
She's going to be a freshman at Acadiana next year. Go Rams, by the way. That's my alma mater.
Yeah.
Then that's where my mom taught for the majority of her teaching career. And then a son is Anderson. He is he's 7, going into 2nd grade next year. So
that's awesome.
We did not do the triple A because my wife is Angela, Adeline, and Anderson. We didn't do that on purpose.
Sure.
It just happened. And the funny story about that though, when we found out we were pregnant with Addie. We went through the baby names, and we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl at the time, babynames.com or whatever it was. And we started with the A's, and we got to Adeline, and we looked at each other. We're like, I'm good. You good?
That easy, huh?
That was the girl name. And I was always a big Anderson Silva fan from UFC.
Yeah.
And also one of my most influential friends that I made in my career, his name is Chris Anderson. And I was like, okay, Anderson's the name. Like, that's it. So we always had Addie and Andy, or Adeline and Anderson, for whenever we had boy or girl. That was going to be the first 2 names, and that's what happened.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it worked out.
That is so cool. We have Evangeline, Asher, and Oliver, so I told my wife we need, just a couple more. We can fill out the vowels, you know what I mean?
Man.
We could fill out the vowels. But she hadn't bought onto that one yet.
Ursula. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, we'd have to get creative on the U, I believe.
Yeah. Ursula, you got that. And then Yvonne, is Yvonne with a Y? I think. Yeah, right?
We'd have to get creative.
I'm a product of Lafayette Parish school system, so we're not quite sure if Yvonne starts with a Y. But
I guess if it's a girl, it could. Maybe if it's a boy, like a Russian Ivan.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Ivan.
Yeah, so, dude, perfect. You got your I. You're good, man.
Oh,
you're
yes.
done.
We can make it work one way or the other. That is so funny. Oh, man, that's good. So you are known as a connector, as I had mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Obviously, very close-knit family, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Growing up on the same street your whole life, which is amazing.
On one side, I am the only grandchild. On the other side, I'm one of, I think, 9. And it's funny, as I walked in here, I met your partner, and he was telling me, he's like, wait a second, I know a Dauphin, and I know another Dauphin. So yeah, that side of the family, all over Lafayette, and most people recognize the Dauphin name from my mom teaching.
Okay.
But my grandfather was in Metro Code within Lafayette Parish. My uncle was in the banking world. Another uncle in the safety world for a long time.
Okay.
So, kind of all over the place. But yeah, man. So the connector part, though, I think that all stems from my mom.
Okay.
Because being a teacher, I don't know if you've had this experience, but when you see one of your teachers from elementary school, middle school, high school, there's definitely one of 2 reactions. It's either I'm going to look the other way and I want to avoid them, or there's the, oh my God, I want to go give him a high five and tell him how much I appreciated him and that stuff. My mom was definitely the latter.
Okay.
Right. So I can vividly remember being 6, 8, 10 years old. And at that time, I didn't appreciate it. It was an eye roll because we were in Albertsons or we're in Hobby Lobby or Target.
Always somebody
whatever.
to talk to, Mom.
Yeah, and they'd always walk up, Miss Dauphin, oh my God, what are you doing? Blah blah blah. And I am this profession or this profession. And my mom taught keyboarding or typing.
Okay, I was thinking piano there for a second.
No. So it's funny. My dad was a typewriter repairman. My mom taught typing, and then it turned into keyboarding. But so a lot of people in the 90s and early 2000s, the computer was still a newer thing. Mm-hmm. So not everybody learned how to type. So they were going to take that class in high school. And I'm not saying it changed their life, but it definitely helped them in their career. So it didn't matter what profession they were in, they were touching a computer most of the time.
Right.
So for them to come up to my mom and be able to make that connection with her and say, you were the reason why I ... whatever it was. As I mentioned, as a kid, didn't really appreciate that, but I did like the fact that people enjoyed talking to my mom and reminiscing with her and things like that. So now we have worked out a deal, and I'm sure you and your wife have something similar. My wife and I have this as well, where if someone comes up to me and says, hey man, how you been? And I have no idea who this person is.
Introduce your wife.
It's an unspoken rule of, hey, this is my wife, Angela, or this is my wife, and it's her turn to say, hi, I'm Angela. What's your name? And if she can do that really quickly, it's way easier on me to not have that awkward moment of, hey, chief.
I love it. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes,
I love it.
So we worked that out a little bit between my mom and I when I was growing up. Because, at some point, man, she was teaching 150 kids a year.
Yeah. Hard to keep track.
36-year career. I mean, that's thousands of people coming through a classroom. And yeah, so it's just been cool to see that growing up. And I think I had that, it just built in me. And plus living in the same area, you're in Lafayette especially, man. It's such a small town I think that's the right way to put it.
Yeah, I always go, either a big small town or a really small big town. And kind of
yeah. And the 6 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon, Lafayette's about 2.5. And if you talk to someone long enough, you're going to find out who their mom and them are. And
that's right.
You can figure out how.
Hence walking in here, Mr. Scotty Baudouin. Hey, don't I know that last name?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Connect the dots real quick.
Exactly. So I think that's a part of it. Another part of it is being in the sales role, trying to find commonality. And that's really where I'm not saying I'm the best at it or anything, but that's where I feel comfortable is if I can find something that we have in common, or that I can speak something about what you like, then I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to grow from it. And, we can see what type of connection we make after that. But the connection piece, I've always been a firm believer of, if I can solve a problem for you, then that's going to be way more impactful than me immediately asking for something from you at the very beginning.
Right.
And I think so many people in the sales world do have that stigma of what's in it for me from the jump. Right. And if you can kind of flip that mindset and be a provider and be a problem solver for people, the sales will come eventually. Yep. And it's just a matter of how to tie the two together. So, it's not it's not something that I'm just doing, oh my God, out of the kindness of my heart. But the reality is I enjoy that. I love making the connection. I love introducing people. And I'm part of one Acadiana. I'm part of Acadiana Sherm. That's actually how we met. That's through Acadiana Sherm. But I have had multiple friends in different parts of business that I was able to connect, and now they are doing business together. And they may not do business with me, but that's okay. That's not the reason, but it's awesome to see those relationships form. And I talked about this with my buddy Marcus, introducing two people and they end up getting married. Like, how incredible is that?
That's awesome.
Right? So whether you're doing business or whether you're married or whatever the case may be, if you can be that catalyst, I think that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There's something that, for me, been shifting focus over the last 2 years or so of just adding value.
Absolutely.
I came from process improvement, and so whenever you move more into like a sales role, it can be easy. And with all the training you go through to kind of get solution driven and, hey, yes, we're looking for challenges and here's objectives we have to overcome.
You ready? Uncover the pain, right?
Exactly. Every sales book, every sales teaching, uncover the pain. But at the end of the day, we read a book, and I'll share it with you, and it's escaping me the name of it right now, which is embarrassing. But I'll share it with you. Okay. But he really talked about value, and it's not value selling, just adding value every step of the way.
Yep.
And coming out of the sales training process, with the previous companies I've worked for over the last 8 years, going through all these different trainings and solutions, uncover the pain, do this. It's like, if we just look to connect with people want to buy from people.
Yep.
Offer value. Some will buy from you, some won't. But at the end of the day, you're building relationships, and that's going to carry you so much further than anything else when it comes to business selling at all.
Oh, and especially in South Louisiana.
Absolutely.
Because if you can make a connection with those people and have that ability to tie something to something for them, whether it's an introduction to another person, whether it's an idea for a recipe, whether it's a movie recommendation, it doesn't matter the magnitude of it. The littlest thing can absolutely shift someone's mindset, and I think that's impactful as well. So I have my own podcast too, and I figured we'd probably talk about that at some point. But that podcast is called Hope That Helped, and that is really the genesis of it. Was I just want to come up with different things that I find in my life that have helped me, and I want to tell everybody else about it, and it'll help them too.
That's right.
So many of my sales calls have nothing to, like the conversations in my sales calls have nothing to do about the product that I'm selling. Yeah. It's all about, man, have you tried that new restaurant? Right? Yeah. And have you seen this new movie, or have you heard about this new piece of technology? Whatever the case may be. And I feel like I connect with my prospect, with my friends, with my coworkers, with those people in a different way than the typical person that is just talking about X, Y, or Z product.
That's right.
That's going to help solve an issue, right? So that's where I feel like what's the saying in medicine? Like you treat the patient, not the problem. Right. Maybe I don't even know if that's a saying. Maybe I made it up, but it should be
trademark it.
So like I think that's a good aspect to go after. Is you're selling to the person, and yes, you have to solve their problem. But if one of my friends used to say, "Man, you got to know your audience. Don't be the person bringing the donut to the diabetic." And that's right. And that's a huge piece of it. And I like to take it a little different area and angle about, are you an iPhone or an Android user, right? And poke a little fun at the Android. Sorry, no green dots, right? Or no green bubbles. But that was for you, Tessa, in case you're listening. So like that's the type of process that I try to have, and the connection that I try to make is just coming from a place of being genuine and genuinely wanting to help others. And if it doesn't benefit me, oh, well, it doesn't matter. That's not why I'm doing it. Right. So anyway.
And at the end of the day, that's part of, even though you may not be getting any tangible value, it's very fulfilling.
Absolutely.
Right? Because we're helping people, we're pouring into people. And at the end of the day, we are getting something back, even though it might not be in the form of a sale.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I part of my career at my current company, I took a year and I got a promotion into a training role. And it was a temporary role. I knew that going into it. But the training role, I tell everybody, like, I've had success in the sales world. I enjoy the sales world. I love solving problems for my prospects and my customers. But the training aspect of it, my cup has never been more full than when I was helping X, Y, or Z person learn our product or learn our company. And it wasn't even about necessarily the product. It was, this is where you go to find this,
right?
And or whatever the case may be. And one of my greatest friendships that I have stemmed from a coworker coming to our company, and I was showing her what to do, and she was so kind enough after about a month to say, "You know what? We have a beach house. You've helped me so much. Why don't you come stay?"
Oh, nice.
And that has led to one of the greatest friendships between my wife and I and their family, and the kids get along, the husbands get along, the wives get along. It's such a great connection. And it literally stemmed from me actually bugging her and being like, "Hey, what do you need help with?"
Yeah.
So it's fantastic.
Yeah. And you shared, you've had some success in the sales role.
Yep.
I'm just curious, whenever you moved into the training role, did you kind of throw that out and just say, okay, here's our corporate book of training that we need to go through? Or did you, and how did you, if so, pull in, hey, this is what worked well for me in South
it
Louisiana,
was
even though I'm in Houston, right? You were in Houston, correct?
So that the Houston piece came after the training role.
okay.
The training role was actually in Chicago.
Okay.
And it was training all new hires coming into the organization. So I was training people from California to New York.
Wow.
I mean, I had 175 students in the year that came through between all the classes.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was definitely interesting telling them that I've lived on the same street my entire life.
I'll
and
bet.
you know, right. So that's such a foreign concept to so many people. But when we were going through that training process, I absolutely brought in a lot of what worked for me. And some of it didn't really hit because they were like, I don't know, like one of the things, the fudge, right? We
The
talked about
fudge.
that,
You got to
right?
elaborate on the fudge for our audience who doesn't know Tommy. Endearingly is the fudge man.
Yeah, I've been called way worse, but but when it comes to this is a recipe my mom has been making for over 40 years, and I don't know if you have any of these traditions with your family, but this was a Christmas dessert or Christmas treat, if you will.
Yep.
So my mom referred to it as tiger butter
Okay.
because it was white chocolate, milk chocolate, and crunchy peanut butter.
Okay.
And when she would make it, she would melt the chocolate and stir the peanut butter in and then swirl it so it made tiger stripes, and there was peanut butter. So tiger butter. So that is, my mom and dad have been throwing the same Christmas party since before I was born. And it's one of those where there's people that have met at the party, and that's the only reason they know each other. But it's the connector thing. I've never really put that together, but that's my parents have been doing that for years.
Wow.
And I've seen that, right? So I've kind of mirrored it. And now my friends come to that same party. So there's 25 and 35-year-olds hanging out with 75 and 80-year-olds.
That's awesome.
And it's a great night, and it's been awesome. But when my mom made tiger butter, that was hey, it's Christmas time, right? So when I got into this sales role, I started giving that out as Christmas presents. And I was working in Baton Rouge at the time. And when I would tell people this is tiger butter, LSU Tigers, everybody looked at me weird. It was just like, I don't know if I like that name. So I changed it to the 310 fudge.
Okay.
3 ingredients and 10 minutes to make it. And when now I've altered it over the course of the years with my presentation. And now I found these little aluminum ramekins with a clear lid. I've made a QR code label on them that brings you to the recipe, has a nutritional facts. I mean, I've kind of like got it down, right? And I give these things out, and people absolutely love it. And
I can vouch for that. People absolutely love it, including me.
Yeah, it's so good, man. And it's one of those things where giving that out has turned into my calling card, if you will. And it's good to be known for that. You could be known for worse things.
That's right.
But every once in a while you do run into I have a nut allergy or something like that. So I'm still trying to work on a recipe for that. But it does give me the ability to walk in and connect with someone over that, be memorable, and be able to, take the conversation from there.
That's amazing. So, something that I found whenever I was in Houston versus selling in Louisiana is, just a total culture difference for South Louisiana. And, we had at a previous company, a guy from Chicago actually who moved to Louisiana to sell.
Okay.
And I'm sure you can imagine how that went for him.
Yeah.
Utter failure.
Sure. Yeah, that is quite the difference of culture for sure.
It is. And so that's just something that's so unique, I find, with South Louisiana. Every market says they're different, but it's truly something that I've found where the connection matters so much in our area compared to even what but really who you know and how you can connect with people.
Absolutely, man. And even take New Orleans different from Lafayette,
100%.
right? Like New Orleans, it's where'd you go to school? And when they say that, they don't mean college, they mean high school.
That's right.
And that's how they can tell. That's one of the ways they can tell of like, am I going to jive with this person or not? Right.
Yep.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you've seen on social media, Josh and Jace from London.
Yes. at the UK, came over.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I don't, have you continued to watch them since they went back to London?
No, not so much. I saw one post, I think, with him holding the Tony Chachere's can.
Yep, exactly. But so that was one. But then also when LSU won the national championship for baseball, go Tigers!
Go Tigers!
They were losing their mind. They were so excited, and it's like, man, the culture of Louisiana is in those guys now, and they love it. And it would not shock me at all if they come back here within a year. I mean, if they can make it happen, something tells me they're going to do that. And I thought that was awesome for them to come and travel the state and learn all about us. And you know, I've seen them on a couple of different interviews, and it was just cool to see how they got ingrained in the culture so quickly.
Yeah, and embraced it wholeheartedly and really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I love that.
Absolutely.
So with the success, I'll say the sustained success you've had on the sales side, known as a connector. Like I said, very joyful personality that you bring to the table. Has there been any challenges at all that you've experienced in your life?
Oh, so yeah, without a doubt, man. Bringing back to July of 17,
Okay.
My wife is pregnant with our son, 4 months pregnant, and I was let go from a job.
Oh, wow.
It was not my proudest moment. It was
Unexpectedly, or did you see it coming, or what?
No, completely unexpectedly, completely out of left field. I will say it was falsified claims by one employee. They basically terminated me on the Friday, and he quit on the Monday. And he had a job lined up already, so he just wanted to see the world burn.
Oh, wow.
So that was not a good moment, because at that point, insurance ended immediately, and I was unemployed, sole breadwinner for the family, because we had made the decision a few years back for my wife to be a stay-at-home mom, and luckily we had a little bit of money to fall back on, followed the Dave Ramsey steps, and had the emergency fund, and so it wasn't a complete, oh my God, what are we going to do? I need to find a job tomorrow, but it was I need to find a job soon, had a connection with a company I was with prior, went back in a sales role.
Okay.
I had always been on the service side of the business, and said, you know what? I've been told I have a personality for sales. I'll give it a shot. And did that job for 10 months, and then found my way over to Paylocity, and it's been there ever since. And it was cliche, the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Oh, wow.
But that 13-month period was tough for multiple reasons. Number one, first time I'd ever been fired. And you think, I'll say, I thought I'm the only person this has ever happened to. This is terrible. I will never be hired again, right?
Yeah.
I've been thrown away.
Yeah.
And you start talking to people, and you share your story with the people you trust.
Of course.
And you find out someone who you respect very much has been fired. And then that person been let go twice, and you're like, wait a second. Okay, this stuff just kind of happens sometimes. Life is not always fair. It doesn't always work out exactly how you thought. And most of the time, it will turn out better than you thought.
Yeah.
Now, you had to have some serious, tough conversations as a family of, all right, we're buckling down financially.
Yeah. What was that like, if you don't mind elaborating on what you can remember?
It was...
And the reason I ask is, some people, including me, sometimes even on a smaller scale, like when you miss out on a deal that you thought, your expectation was here, but
I don't know what that's like, Dustin. It's never happened to me.
I'm sorry, you're 100% close.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I need to take your training course then, brother. But expectations here, results come in here. It's like, I know me personally, sometimes I can get lost for a day. I'm like, oh my God, I could have done this. I should have done this. I'm a failure. I'm horrible. Or, all these things that can creep up, and you hear stories about people just spiraling down for even weeks at a time in some instances. What was that like? How did y'all handle that as a family? Did you come home and say, hey, babe, this is what happened. This is what we need to do. Were you ready to go, or did you need to cry a little bit?
Oh, absolutely, dude. Tears were shed, 100%, man. And a lot of sleepless nights. It took me a long time to let go of the anger, to be quite honest with you, and be real with you. Like, I was so mad at that guy, and
the one who claimed the false claims.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. And it came out with other coworkers that he has done more things after he left to try to get other people terminated at the company.
wow.
Like, yeah, I mean, come on, man, move on, right?
Yeah.
But so number one, that happened on a Friday, and we had a family vacation the next day to Dustin.
Okay.
With my in-laws and my wife and my daughter.
See, that sounds scarier to me in the sense of like, okay, we have plans with people because I'm an introvert, so like I get to process internally sometimes. You know?
Well, and I had a breakdown moment. We got to the condo and they knew something was wrong, and I said, before we go on the beach, before we do anything else, I got to get this out, and I let them know, and it was a freeing moment because it wasn't like, oh, we gotta can't talk about it, right?
Put a face on and pretend.
Exactly. So, and when we got back, that was Saturday to Friday or whatever it was. We got back. My old team at that old company brought Angela and I to dinner, and and it was just like hey, we love you. We think you are a great person to work for, to work with, and we don't agree with what happened. We can't change what happened, but just know we support you. And that was a big help, just mentally and emotionally. Now, there wasn't a GoFundMe set up or anything, right? So
that's too bad.
From the financial side of things, it was, as silly as it sounds, shave my head. You don't have to spend $30 every 3 weeks on a haircut, right? Like that money will add up. So there was a year where I just had a shaved head forever.
Yeah.
And it was just, I didn't like it. My wife didn't like it, but that was just one of the sacrifices that I could make right now to save X amount of dollars.
Right.
And obviously coupon cutting and try to, the envelope system with Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Absolutely.
So, so it was a moment of, okay, because the sales job that I went into, the base salary was literally half of what I was making.
How long was that from when you got fired until you started at least the next job where like, hey, there's some hope? Okay.
A month. Yeah. So, and I actually started my woodworking business in the meantime.
Okay.
So I do woodworking as a hobby on the side. And so the woodworking stuff was never meant to be a full-time gig. It was always just try to get something coming in.
Yeah.
And it worked out well, man. I mean, it was, I like to tell everybody like the woodworking hobby supports my tool habit, right? So a lot of the money turned into more tools so I could do different jobs and stuff like that. But it was one of those where, sit down with the family and say, hey, look, this isn't permanent, but we got to tighten up, cut the cable, cut the, whatever we could that we didn't have to have, let's cut it out. And we've added it all back and, we have more streaming services than we need. But yeah, so it's one of those where, and having the family support me to say, we got you, no problem. That was huge because if my wife wouldn't have been so understanding, that's a problem, right? And added stress of, okay, now I have to find exactly what I was making immediately, which is a lot harder to do.
Of course.
And the moral of the story or the happy ending for it is once I came to the company I'm at now, base salary went back up. Now I'm earning commissions on top of that. So I made more money in the last, 7 years than I did ever with that previous company. So, which is amazing and nice and all that stuff. Course. But so that was kind of a crazy couple of months. And I don't know if you do this, but man, a lot of that stuff is just the memory has faded. And I don't know if I blocked a lot of it out of my memory, but like my wife will bring something up. She's like, oh, you remember when we did that? I'm like, I have no recollection of that. And it was like, oh, well, that was September of 17. It's like, that's why. Like, I was in a bad place, man. And not to sit and dwell on that type of stuff. You block it out and move on. But so the rest of that 13-month time period, August of 18, get a phone call August 4th, actually Facebook Messenger message from my high school girlfriend. Haven't spoken to her in more than a decade. And she said, are you sitting down? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I remember exactly where I was. I was actually doing a woodworking project for a friend of mine. I was at his office making a desk. And she said, are you sitting down? I'm like, no, I'm working. It's Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Like, what are you talking about? She goes, can you take a phone call? I'm like, yeah, what's up? What is going on? I haven't talked to you in years.
Yeah.
Why are you reaching
Why
out?
the secrecy? Yeah.
Yeah. And she said, hey, she called me and she said, just to let you know, Brad died. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Now, Brad was my best friend from kindergarten. Besides anyone blood in my family, this is a dude I've known longer than anybody.
Wow.
And he was a pilot. Brad was one of those guys. He bought a piece of property in Bro Bridge, 100 foot wide, 1.25 miles deep. And he was so happy. And when he bought it, he told me, I'm like, what are you going to do with that? He goes, I'm building a runway. And 9 months later, there was a metal building shop house, and he lived in the 30 by 40 part of it. And the plane lived in the 40 by 40 part of it, or 60, whatever it was. And yeah, he had a little Cessna, and he would fly it a couple times a week, whatever. But anyway, back in 2018, he was learning to become a banner pilot at the beach in Orange Beach, ironically. And it was his second day of training. And I still to this day don't know exactly what happened, but they were about 300 feet up. Something went wrong and the plane went down. So got a phone call that morning. That was on the Saturday. So immediately, and he had a wife and a daughter that was 3. Wow. So immediately we got in the car and drove to Orange Beach and spent the night with them to try to, console them or whatever. Came back on the Sunday, and I had my interview for my current company on the Monday.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Bro, emotionally, I can't even imagine.
Well, and it got worse because the very first question from the manager that ended up hiring me was, hey, man, you like to go fishing? And Brad was my fishing buddy. That was my fishing partner.
Man.
And when I got terminated the year prior, he brought me to go fishing. And that was like the last time we really got to hang out, because shortly after that he moved to Alabama and he got busy with life. I got busy with life. And yeah, man, that was a rough interview to get through and not like, because I didn't want to be that guy that you're interviewing for the first time. And I'm like, hey man, my best friend just died, so really held it together. And then, but then you got some of those moments where they wink at you, right?
Yeah, we call them God winks,
Yeah, absolutely. Like so a couple things with that one. I started with current company in the sales training program as a student, and one of the most dynamic individuals I've ever met walked in the door, and you've seen those people where they walk in and immediately everyone just looks at them.
Right, capture the room.
Absolutely. And this guy walked in, and there was about 10 of us, and he goes, "Good morning, everybody. How are you?" And we all, and everyone said, "Good." And I was the only one that said, "And what about you?" And he stopped and he looked, and the room was shaped in a U, and I was at the bottom of the U. And he said, "Who said that?" I was like, "Me." And he goes, "That's what I'm talking about, man. That's how you connect with people. You ask how they're doing." And like, he just turned it into a teaching moment. And his name was Brad. Oh. And I was just like, whoo, and I'm getting chills, like just talking about it now. About a month later, I'm talking to someone who was my office person. I would submit deals to her and stuff like that. And she's talking, she's working from home, and she says, "Hey, Piper, can you grab that?" And I'm like, "What did you just say?" She said, "Piper, my daughter." Well, Brad's daughter's name is Piper.
Wow.
So like, it was those two moments where I was like, I'm exactly where I need to be. And everything happened. I mean, it was a terrible situation, but like it's going to be okay. We're going to get past it. We're going to move forward. And we have, you know.
What was from, the getting fired, going through that process, having to grapple with, hey, maybe some of the questions were, I'm angry, like you said.
Yeah.
Is there something wrong with me? Could I have done something better? Through coming to a place, and then something so emotionally challenging hits and painful. I mean, what have you pulled from that season, that 13-month season that you so eloquently say, this was the box, it was 13 months.
Yep.
And I've heard you say that a couple of times. What have you pulled from that season?
That, cliche, but this too shall pass. And there's a story that I tell to people in my life, whether it's somebody I'm mentoring in the sales world or someone that is, going for a position or something, waiting on something to happen in their life, good or bad, right? And I'm going to butcher this, so do not quote me on this, but I believe there's an old story about the farmer that is raising horses, and he has wild horses that he is breaking and trying to train so he can sell them. Well, the story goes that the horses break out of the fence one day and they run away. And his wife comes up and she's like, "Oh my God, this is terrible. The horses got away. We have no more horses." He goes, "We'll see." Well, the next day, his 2 horses come back and 3 more horses are with them. So the wife is like, "Oh my God, this is awesome. We got 3 free horses. You can now train more and we can sell them." He goes, "We'll see." Well, the story just keeps going on, and the son starts helping the dad break the horses, and then the son gets bucked off and breaks his leg. And the wife is like, "This is terrible." Dad says, "We'll see." The moral of the story is it doesn't matter what happens in life. It can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing, but you won't know the outcome until later on. And the fact of the matter is, whether something that is good or bad happens, it's gonna pass. The good times will end, the bad times will end. And just like in the sales world, right? Talking about the deals and the commissions and all that stuff, like you have to try to stay, and I'm really bad at it, but emotionally steady through that. And I'm very bad at it, actually. Like I'm very passionate about things. I get very excited very easily. I get up and I get down, and it's hard to stay that even keel. And as I've grown and as I've gotten older, I feel like I've gotten a little bit better at it, but I'm still not good at it.
Yeah.
So I guess to answer your question, I think that's what I've taken out of it is try to stay the high is not as high and the low is not as low, and just try to stay as even as possible in the situation to weather the good or the bad.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. We hear it, and I'm like you. I get passionate about something, like especially if being the problem solver at heart. If I see an issue that I know I can fix, I can help you with this. You know what I mean? Like, just let me help you with this. On the sales side, it's so hard sometimes.
It's so funny you said that. So 2 things. Have you had the conversation with your wife of, is this a conversation you want me to try to help you fix or just listen?
No, I've heard people talk about that. I've just kind of defaulted now to just listening mostly. But I probably should just have that more explicitly laid out.
Honestly, took me 10 years to figure that out with my wife, because she would come home at the time before she was a stay-at-home mom. She worked at a daycare. So she would come home and whatever the situation was, right? With a kid, with a coworker, with her boss, whatever. And immediately I'm like, "Well, you can do this, you can do that. You can." And she was like, "I don't want you to fix it. I just want to tell you about it." And that is such a foreign thing to most guys. But I heard somebody say the other day, he's like, do you know why most men like golf and most women don't like golf, the game? And he said it's because a game of golf or a round of golf is solving 100 problems in 30-second increments.
Oh, wow.
And you never have the same problem twice. You will never have the same shot. Yes, you have a tee shot, but where that lands is never going to be, well, at least in my golf game.
Mine either, so don't worry.
Right. So you never have that same shot twice, and you're never going to have the same win. You're never going to have the same lie, whatever the case may be. And if you throw your club in the water, you don't have that club anymore. So that is why I think men are just wired differently. Most men, not to speak in generalities, but and of course there's women who love the game of golf, But my wife is not a golf fan, and I think that's a big part of it. Is it's not in her nature to just solve a problem, move on, solve and move on. It's a let me think about it, and it's a little more well thought out, right? Because it's hardly ever the right decision to swing that club that hard.
I've heard a lot of leadership coaches and these guys that have built just massive companies. They say, look, you're never going to have all the information anyway. So it's about making the best decision you can with 60, 70% of the information if you're lucky. But at the end of the day, it's making the decision. And just moving forward. You can always pivot. We like to say it's easier to steer a ship that's in motion. A rudder is very small compared to the size of the ship. But if it's moving, you can steer that ship. If it's parked at the dock, you can turn on that wheel, try and move it. It's not going anywhere.
Great analogy. Absolutely.
So that's something that for sure, all of us can work on, including myself. Like, just move forward, even keel, steady Eddie, as they like to say.
One foot in front of the other.
That's right.
And if you need to pivot and figure it out. And what's the quote from Anchorman? 70% of the time it works every time, right? You're going to be wrong. So you might as well just make a decision and adjust accordingly.
Yep.
Right?
And move with expediency. I want to pop a question on you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Never asked, but I think this would be a fun conversation to have. If you had unlimited resources, what project would you undertake and why?
Are we talking woodworking? Or are we talking just across
life
the board?
in general? Unlimited resources.
Oh, man.
As a connector, as a problem solver.
What project would I undertake? Man, that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll I think I'll go woodworking, and if anything else triggers in my brain, there's always technology being involved with the woodworking projects, right? I went to a woodworking conference. Shocker!
Oh wow!
It was just a bunch of 60-year-old white dudes in Kansas City in 2015. We did a mother-son trip, so it was kind of fun.
Very cool.
And it was funny because I was going because I was of the YouTube woodworking community. They had one booth. There was 45 or 50 booths there, and every other booth was like a hand tool or something like that. And I am not interested in any of that. I want the technology, the laser cutter, the CNC machine, stuff like that. And there was one booth with all of the YouTuber people, and I was actually on an elevator with a guy with the LSU hat on. So immediately we struck up a conversation, and he named 3 or 4 people. I was like, man, I'm really excited to see these guys. And I'm like, I have no idea who you're talking about. He just looked at me like I had 3 eyes. And I said, but what about April Wilkerson and Jimmy DiResta, Bob Claggett? And he's like, yeah, dude, I don't know who you're talking about either. So, and that's what I realized, like, I am in a totally different mindset than most traditional woodworkers are. But from a woodworking project, adding the laser, the CNC, and building a content creation piece, I would love to be able to do that as a full-time job, right? Obviously, it's never going to happen, unless something drastically changes. But having the ability to create content, come up with new projects, new ideas, new ways of doing things, I would love to explore that, just to be able to create something, right? Whether it's a physical product, whether it's an idea, whether it's a methodology, the creation piece is I think impactful, right? Because if we stay doing the same thing for years and we never change, what are we missing out on? And how can it be better? And how can it become something we never thought it could be, right?
That's right.
I think that's where I would go with it.
Yeah, where the passion for woodworking come from? Because when we talk about unlimited resources, you initially go to woodworking, right? You picked it up as a hobby.
Yep.
I've seen some of the projects you've done, at Head Kicks. You built the bleachers there.
Yeah.
Where did that stem from?
So I would love to tell you, well, my grandfather did it, and I would go sit in the shop with him and work. The reality is my grandfather did do it, but I never even knew he was a woodworker until after he passed.
Oh, wow.
So I inherited some of his tools and stuff like that, but it's so stupid. I wanted to learn how to build a cornhole board. So I went on YouTube, typed it in, and I looked up 3 hours later, and I was hooked. And the ironic part is I didn't build a cornhole board for a year.
Oh, wow.
Because I just started building other stuff.
Okay.
Because I would watch one video and then another and then another and then another. And all those names I mentioned, by the way, I met all those people on that trip.
Very cool.
And it was fantastic. And you were talking about the connector part.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do is I try to shoot my shot where I can. So when I was in the elevator at the woodworking conference, we were at the hotel. There's a female woodworker, which are very rare, by the way.
Can imagine.
April Wilkerson. She was located in Texas, and she had a fantastic shop behind her house. It was smaller, but it had everything she needed. She was doing tool deals with these brands that I'd never heard of from Europe. And I mean, she was a big deal. Still
A
is.
woodworker influencer.
Yeah, absolutely. Before that was really a thing,
2015, right? Okay.
So I'm in the elevator with her, and I'm not talking at this point. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get to see her at this conference. I've never been there. This is the night we arrive. And my daughter at the time was 4. And I said, and April, she was with her husband, and April and her husband, his name's Cody, walked out of the elevator, and it wasn't my floor. And I was like, you know what? Whatever. And I walk out. We're in the elevator vestibule, if you will. And I said, hey, before this gets weird and I follow you to your room, can I just interrupt you for a quick second? And they were like, yeah, what's up? And I said, look, I have been watching you for years on YouTube. I think you're amazingly talented. My daughter is 4 and she loves watching your channel. Would you be okay if I took a picture and sent it to her? And she goes, you want to FaceTime her? I'm like, yeah, that would be awesome.
Wow.
So, man, we FaceTime Daddy. She got to see April. And, of course, being 4, she was super
shy. Yep.
Well, that ended up turning into, at the end of the conference, she gave me her phone number and she said, next time y'all are in the Dallas area, which that's where my in-laws are from, call me and we'll connect. I want to meet your daughter. And I'm like, done. So we ended up meeting the next Thanksgiving to go to the in-laws, that side of the family. And we took a couple hours and we went to April's house, got a picture with my daughter and April in her shop and all that stuff. So I'm not quite sure how we got to that conversation, but it's the idea of shooting the shot, right? Going for it. And if the answer is already no. So if they just confirm that, oh well. But if you never ask, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's how my brain works. And I'm after talking to a bunch of friends, they're like, I don't think that way. What are you talking about? Why would you ever ask someone to take a picture with, it's like, man, that's just how I'm wired. John Malecki in Pittsburgh. We took a trip to Pittsburgh, my wife and I, a few years ago. I toured a shop. And what came of that was I met one of his coworkers who now left and went into the tech sales world.
Okay.
So he and I, still to this day, still text about tech stuff. And so it's just wild how forcing the collisions with people who you like and want to be connected with, what will turn out with that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, building relationships, you know, adding value, you never know what it could turn into. But at the end of the day, it's fulfilling. Yeah. You enjoy it. You have cool little moments. You can go to Dallas and now you can call her. You can go to Pittsburgh or wherever and reach out to this person. And you never know where that's going to go.
Absolutely, man.
That's amazing.
And it was cool because I made a box, a maple and walnut box, and I brought it with me to that conference. And all of the guys were and mostly guys, were in the hotel bar after the conference was done. I brought it out there and I got everyone to sign the box. So I have that keepsake. Well, Jimmy DiResta, if anybody's interested in woodworking stuff, hit me up. I got 200 people to follow on YouTube. But Jimmy DiResta, Bob Claggett, and David Picciuto, Nick Ferry, all of those guys were at the bar. They all signed it. Well, Bob, David, and Jimmy all have a podcast together, and they talked about me on their podcast.
Are you serious?
Back in 2016, and that was just one of my. That was
what
just
a cool
such
moment!
A cool moment, and of course, who's listening to a woodworking podcast besides weirdos? But
what a cool moment, though.
Man. But I think that's one of the things I want to instill in my kids is go for it. Yeah. You never know what's going to happen. If you get told no, who cares? But go for it. Ask the question, take the picture, jump in and see what happens.
I love that, man. Appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Well, I think now we can transition into the ABCs of the elevation room as we close out. So A is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think jump in is the way to go, right? So when I was at Cintas, my first job, I can vividly remember being in my sales manager's office and having a panic attack because I needed to make cold calls.
Oh, wow.
and I had every reason, they don't know who I am. Why would they want to buy from me? Blah, blah, and all of that stuff, that negative self-talk was in my head. And Jennifer Medier, shout out Jennifer, was my sales manager, and she just said, "Hey, can you just shut up and dial?" And it was just such a slap in the face of like, yeah, I really should just do this.
Yeah.
And so it's ironic that, 12, 13 years later, I'm training people on how to do that same job, right? Of sales and cold calls and all that stuff. And, but yeah, so I think jump in is the best advice that I can give, and it can be applied to multiple different parts of life. And sometimes I need to take my own advice, right?
Amen.
There's still some times where it's like, maybe I'm the paralysis by analysis. I'm definitely guilty of that. But I think once you commit to it, you got to go 100% and go for it.
Amen. I love that. I love that.
Absolutely, man.
So the B is books that have made the greatest impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So number 1 is Find Your Yellow Tux by Jesse Cole. Do you know who Jesse Cole is?
I do not, and I've never heard of this book.
Okay.
And I like to think of myself as an avid reader. So
and I am not.
Okay.
So
I love it.
Audiobooks, I'm a huge fan of.
Okay.
But this is one of those books that I think, and he actually has 3 books out, and the other 2 names are escaping me. Fans First, I think, is one. Find Your Yellow Tux, and I can't remember the name of the third one. But Jesse Cole, when I say who he is, you're going to be like, I know that guy. He's the owner of the Savannah Bananas.
Well, that would make sense then.
Yes,
the Yellow Tux.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that book is all about finding your niche and doing what you do in a different way that helps you stand out. And I just think the Fans First book all talks about your customer comes first when it comes to thinking about your process, your product, all of the aspects of your business, removing the friction, making it easier for them to do something. And, I recently saw an interview with him on 60 Minutes and, it was interesting. He said the wait list for banana tickets is 3.5 million deep.
Are you serious?
It's unbelievable, man.
Wow.
And just the other day I saw, he's a great LinkedIn follow, by the way. Like he posts every single day and it's always good content. So highly recommend him, Jesse Cole. So Find Your Yellow Tux is a big one. And then this one's going to be kind of silly, but Marley and Me.
Marley and Me.
That is the only book that I've ever read that made me cry on an airplane, by the way.
Okay.
So, do you know the story about Marley and Me? So they turned it into a movie with Owen Wilson, Jennifer Aniston.
I think I've heard of the movie.
It's all about a dog.
A dog. I was going to say a dog.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. Yep. So but it was just one of those where it was the first time a book had ever made me cry, and to be able to tap into that emotion from words on a page, like I just thought that was such a crazy moment because I'm literally sitting on an airplane as a 26-year-old man crying. And I'm just like, what in the world is going on?
What is happening? What is this coming from my eyes? I don't understand.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's just one of those books that is ingrained in my brain as like a great book, a sad book, but a great book. And to be able to evoke that emotion, I think is, super powerful.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm reading a book right now called Key Person of Influence. It's about being a KPI, key person of influence in your industry. And one of the steps they recommend is publishing. And they take it from the angle of actually publishing a book because you can turn that into all kinds of content. And they say that it's not about really writing the book, although that sharpens the pencil, or they say it's not about being a best-selling author. It's about being an author.
Yeah. Taking the step
period.
and doing it.
That's right.
Yep.
But in that, they say here's 5 different types of books you could write. And one of them was fiction, that, great stories, that drives emotions, that really helps articulate a specific point that you're trying to get to through fictionalized characters and events.
Yep.
And they say, highly recommend you save that for the professionals because there's a great deal of creativity, of craftsmanship that goes into building a story that has the length and depth that can draw emotions and drive home a point through fictionalized stories and content.
Yeah.
It's like, moving past that one.
So at what point do I draw or write the stick figure book? Like
That's
that's
right.
the one I'm good, right? If there's a maybe pop up or something
Hey,
like that too.
Go for it. Just jump right on in, Tommy. Come on. Let's just make it a thing.
Yeah,
Make it a thing.
without a doubt.
I
Without
love
a
it.
doubt.
So the last one is C. This is, I'm very interested because I know I would consider you a family guy.
Absolutely.
Cherished family traditions.
Okay,
And where
so-
did they originate from? I know you talked about the fudge one.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one's a little bit different. And this isn't necessarily a tradition other than like inside connections and inside jokes. Okay. So now that I say this, every time you see this, you will think of me and you will think of my daughter. So, do you know what a Kia Soul is?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen the green Kia Soul?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a running joke with my daughter and now my wife, and now I have friends, my boss, like everyone I tell this to starts sending me pictures of green Kia Souls. Because this all started a couple of years ago. I told my daughter, hey, you're going to be driving, in 3-4 years. What kind of car do you want? Because that was one of my favorite pastimes growing up is like, what kind of car am I going to drive? And just dreaming, right?
Yeah.
And now with all the social media and devices and everything, like everyone can just see what they want, right? But it was just, we had magazines. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
So she was telling me, she was like, I don't know what I want, but I know I don't want a green Kia Soul.
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening that drives a green Kia Soul, my daughter's not a fan.
Yeah. No offense.
Yeah. But so now we have the streak continues. Every single day I see a green Kia Soul. And I think it's about the law of attraction, right?
That's right.
But literally today, I sent a little video to her, and it was just, oh my God, it's such a beautiful day. Oh wait, never mind. There's a green Kia Soul. Ruined it. Sorry, bye. And I sent it to her. But it was just that to me. Obviously we talked about Brad. I have another buddy of mine, Dustin, that unexpectedly passed a few years ago, and the videos that his wife is sharing now of him with the kids or him and her or whatever, like that is so cool to go back and see. And of course, as a kid, you're like, why are you filming me, Dad? Why are you, that type of stuff. But, and I was that way.
I'll say as a husband, I'm like, let's just enjoy the moment. Why do we need to take video?
And I'm the opposite. I'm the guy filming everything. I'm the guy taking pictures and all right, y'all stop what you're doing, get together for a picture.
Yeah.
And of course I get the groans and everything, but that is one thing that I've learned over the last 5 years or 7 years with the losses that I've had in my life is take the picture, take the video, because you think you're going to remember the moment, you will forget the moment. And you remember some, right? But there are so many videos and pictures and that's kind of a fun tradition my wife and I have too, is like, we're bored, and most of the time it's on our date nights. We're like, all right, we miss the kids.
Yeah.
So we just go in our phone gallery and we just scroll. And we like stop on one and we're like, oh, that was, 6 years ago. I forgot about that. Yeah. It just brings up memories and stuff like that. But yeah, so the green Kia Soul thing, just having a connection with your family members that is just for y'all to, your inside jokes, your silly stories, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That to me is one of my favorite aspects of being a dad, being a husband, being a friend to others. And because I'll get random pictures of green Kia Souls and it just makes me laugh every time.
Yeah. I love that. And wasn't that one of the reasons y'all wanted to start y'all's podcast that you did as well?
So that came about because, so the family that we went to, yes, you're exactly right. So when Brad passed, his daughter was 3 and it was so sudden. I was thinking about it like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I died tomorrow to have some sort of library that my kids can go back and listen to stories and stupid jokes and whatever the case may be. So we went to Tiffany and Ryan's house in Orange Beach in 2020. We went there 3 times in like 2.5 months.
Okay.
Because if you remember, we had 2 hurricanes. One hit Lake Charles, and I forget where the other one hit, but it was coming towards Lafayette. And we have a rule: if it's a 3 or higher, we're gone. just because we have the ability to go somewhere. And I'm not trying to stay in a house with no electricity, with no AC, right? I mean, it is what it is. Stuff can be replaced. I'm out. I would rather be comfortable.
Yeah.
Now, my parents are the complete opposite. They do not want to go anywhere, but you know, now that they're a little older, I'd probably stay, but I'm trying to convince them to come with me because we can replace whatever we need to replace, right? So we would go to Tiffany's house to evacuate, and then they got hit with a hurricane. So they had about 1.5 feet of water in their house. So we went to help them clean up and everything like that and make repairs or whatever. And we were there, and I would end my emails at work with "hope that helped," because again, trying to help people do whatever I can. A lot of the times people came to me as the question resource guy, like, "Hey, how do we do this? Where do we go find this? What's that answer again?" And they would just throw it out there, and I'd most of the time have some sort of guidance for them. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about it, and Tiffany, I forget who said it, but one of us was like, "Man, we should do a podcast." And Tiffany goes, "And it should be called Hope That Helped." And I'm like, done. So
I'm in.
It was so funny because she and I, like, we were sitting in her office, and we're working, and instead of working, we're planning this podcast, right? Mm-hmm. So we sit Angela and Ryan down that night, and we're like, "Okay, we got a plan. We're going to do a podcast." And like, we were expecting them to be like, "Oh, this is awesome." Yeah. And they were like, "Okay." It's just
calm,
like,
no emotion.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And the reality is, Tiffany says this all the time. She's like, if it wouldn't be for me continually saying, "Hey, when are we recording? When's we got to record before this date, whatever." She was like, we would have 3 episodes and we'd be done. Right. But we are, I think, episode 197, 198,
that's amazing.
Something like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man. So it was just that's the main reason that we started it, was just so selfishly my kids can have, and my wife could have a library of me in case something ever happened.
Yeah.
And I love doing it, man. It's so much fun. And our podcast, it has a little bit of a different format. We do have some interviews, but mostly it's just Tiffany and I talking, and we talk about things that are going, what made your week, right? What is something that's happening right now that you're enjoying? And the purpose of it is to maybe give some of our listeners an idea of something to do with their family. You were talking about traditions earlier, right? One of the things that Tiffany gave us the idea of is during Christmas time to do a scavenger hunt.
Very cool.
And we have then parlayed that into all year round. You can, and like, we thought about this as a game too, that like you could sell the product.
Yeah, subscribe to. Yeah.
Correct. So like every month you could send out these game boards or topics or whatever. And then we do it with a card. My wife has a Christmas one. So the way we do it, we bring out 5 cards. One might be a snowman. The other one is an elf with a red hat. Another one can be a reindeer with a red nose. Like some are super specific, some are just real general. And the 4 of us, and most of the time we do guys versus girls, and the winner gets to pick where we go get ice cream.
Very cool. Very cool.
High stakes, right?
That's right.
And most of the time we either play for a set time period, and an hour and a half, or first one to 20 points or whatever, right? We make it up every time, but that is one of my favorite things to do because it's just the 4 of us.
Yes.
We're having a great time. Most of the time somebody makes some joke and dude, that's where the memories come in. And it's so good, man. So that's my second cherished family thing, but that all came from Tiffany. Her and her family do this every year. And I was like, I've never thought about that. That's awesome. And then we tried it. We loved it. And so now every year, Christmas light scavenger hunt.
That's very good. This year, I'm going to ask about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to parlay that for us with our
without
kids.
a doubt,
because they would have a blast doing that.
Yeah. And then like the card set we have, there's actually 2 stacks of cards, outdoor cards and indoor cards. Okay. So if the weather's bad or whatever, you can still do an indoor scavenger hunt with the kids too.
Very cool.
Yeah, man, it's fantastic.
I love that. Man, well, this has been a blast. I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with me.
Without a doubt, man.
Talk with everyone that's listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the last note, where can people contact you if they want to reach out?
Facebook, LinkedIn. Hope That Helped podcast on Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, all of that stuff. But yeah, hit me
Cool.
up if you have any questions. And if you want the fudge recipe, let me know. I know a guy.
Yeah, there you go. And I'll make sure to link everything in the episode description
I'll send it to
as
you.
well. Well, this has been great. You know, for everyone, so grateful that you've been on this journey and continuing on this journey with us here in the Elevation Room. No matter what you're going through, remember to stay rooted in purpose, living on purpose, and walking with purpose.